Hey folks, Joe with JAC Baseball Collector here, coming back at you with another video. Today we're going to take a look at Top Series 2, 2023 Top Series 2 rookie class. I'm going to do a top 10 ranking, similar to what I did for Series 1. And I'd love to hear from you guys down in the comments who you're most excited to collect in Series 2 this year. It's going to be coming out, I believe, June 7th. So just about a week after this video drops. Series 2 should start hitting the shelves and folks should be getting their shipments and all that good stuff. So always definitely a fun time for summer, kind of a summer kickoff when Series 2 starts rolling out every year. So, looking back at Series 1, it had a really good, strong rookie class. I think everyone knows and is well acquainted with it at this point. Kind of just to quickly run through it, the guys I had in my top 10 were Nolan Gorman and Tristan Casas. This is actually 11 because I had a tie. Nolan Gorman, Tristan Casas, Oswald Peraza, who hasn't played a whole ton for the Yanks this year. Casas has struggled. Gorman's been great. Miguel Vargas has been decent for the Dodgers. Vaughn Grissom, who's didn't even make the team out of camp for the Braves, but I think he has a future with them. Brett Beatty has been phenomenal. Gabriel Moreno, who ended up with the Diamondbacks after that Blue Jays trade for Dalton Varsho. He's hitting, I believe, over 300 as a catcher. Riley Green, who's got off to a little bit of a slow start, really started to pick up steam, and I think right before I'm making this video, I believe he has a stress fracture in his leg or something now, so he's going to be on the shelf for a little while, but he's got a lot of promise. Gunnar Henderson, who's had kind of an up and down start to the year. Michael Harris, who's had some injuries, and his numbers are not particularly good, but he's a guy a lot of folks were chasing. And then Adley Rutschman obviously was my number one. Anyone who's watched my videos knows I absolutely love him. I'm a big fan of his, and I think he's going to be the premier catcher in baseball for the next decade. So, those were the guys I had in the top 10 as far as Series 1 go. But turning our attention then to Series 2, like I said, coming out in a week. I count here that there are going to be 70 rookies in the set of 330. I may have been slightly off. I did a manual count on the checklist, but I think there's going to be 70 rookies out of the 333. So that comes out to something like, what is that, a 25% or so, a little over 20% of the set are rookies. So this is another really strong set. There's going to be a number of really solid names, good chase names. And it actually makes me a little nervous about update. We'll get to that in a second. So looking to the list. So, the list I have here, I have some honorable mentions. I have a couple guys who have missed it and we can expect to see an update. And then we'll go through another top 10. It's actually going to be 11 again. I have a tie at the top, or I guess at the bottom of the list, you would say. So guys I have on the honorable mention list, you have guys like Max Meyer, who was a highly regarded prospect for the Marlins, pitching prospect. I believe he's been injured thus far this year. I actually just pulled his auto in Heritage the other day. You guys may have seen that if you watched that video. We got Mark Vientos, big-time bat prospect for the Mets. Doesn't really have a position, but he hits the hell out of the ball. Oswaldo Cabrera, really versatile Yankee. Putting him on there, one, for my Yankees bias, and two, just because any good position player, rookie in Yankee land tends to have at least a little bit of value to him, even though he's had a pretty rough start to the year. Still super young, has a ton of upside. Bo Naylor, big time power hitting catcher prospect for the Guardians, and then Esteury Ruiz. I have on this list as well. I almost forgot to include him, but he's actually leading the major leagues on pace for around 80 steals so far this year. So definitely one of the fastest guys in the majors. Stuck in Oakland, a market that nobody cares about. Maybe that'll change once they're the Las Vegas, whatever they're going to be called. But right now, he's probably not a guy with a ton of value, but he's a really, really nice player. And he steals a ton of bags. He's very electric. All right, I want to look at Topps update for a minute before we get into the top 10 list. So, I just jotted down a few names here of guys who obviously aren't in Series 2, probably rightfully so, who are probably going to end up in update, and others that they may hold back for Series 1 next year. So that's going to be names like Zach Neto, shortstop for the Angels, who they called up. Grayson Rodriguez, who's gotten, he's been up and down with the Orioles thus far. Very highly regarded pitching prospect. Taj Bradley from the Rays. Yuri Perez, assuming he sticks with the Marlins, and they've called him up, I believe, directly from Double-A. Big hard throwing right-handed pitcher. And then the guy who I have a big question mark next to is going to be Elly De La Cruz, who's a top 5 prospect in baseball right now. He hits the ball as hard as anyone I've ever seen. He's got all the tools, and the Reds are probably going to have to he's going to force their hand really quickly. They're going to have to call him up at some point soon. The question is just if he's going to make the cutoff for update or not, or if it's going to be someone they hold back for Series 1. If there's anyone else I missed, let me know down in the comments if there's anyone you think who didn't make it into Series 1 or Series 2 that you think is notable that we could expect to see an update. But like I said, those are the names that I expect to see. As you can see, it might not be a particularly strong rookie set. If those are kind of the flagship guys we see, there's 3 out of the 5 I listed were pitchers. Ellie De La Cruz probably has a low chance of actually making it, so it's going to be pretty interesting, and it might be a little bit of a tough or weaker set as far as update goes. All right, we're already 5 minutes in, so let's get to the actual top 10 list here for Series 2. So I'm going to start at the top. I have a tie for 10th, and in my tie for 10th, I have these 2 guys right here who have already had rookie cards in Bowman. It's going to be Kodai Senga and Masataka Yoshida. And you know what? Let me get a couple of stands to throw these guys up on so I don't have to just hold them up in front of the screen the entire time. That's probably well advised. So we got Kodai Senga and Masataka Yoshida. So you can probably see the the parallel I'm drawing with those 2 guys being tied for 10th. Obviously, they're both top Japanese players that came over to America this year. They're both a little bit on the older side. Yoshida's, I believe, 29. Senga's already 30. But I think that even though they're a bit older, even though they're not top tier guys, just the Japanese aspect, the Asian aspect, they will have some collectability. People will be interested in them. They both play in premier markets, obviously with Boston and New York, even though it's the Mets and not the Yankees. So they're 2 guys who I think that rightfully so cracked the top 10 from this for this series. So let's just take a close look at each of them individually. So you got Kodai Senga. He's probably the top Japanese pitcher to come over here since Masahiro Tanaka. Obviously, excluding Shohei, he's kind of his own beast. So exclude Shohei for a minute, like a pure pitcher coming from Japan, who's not a unicorn like Shohei. I think he's probably the best one who's come over since Tanaka. I couldn't come up with anyone else unless there's someone I'm totally forgetting about. But he had a really good Japanese career. I mean, he had a 2.59 ERA with over 1,200 strikeouts, 1,252 strikeouts in his 11 years in Japan. So like I said, he's already 30. He's pitched 11 full years over in Japan. So his upside is a little bit limited, both in terms of just baseball wise and hobby wise, but he's got that nasty kind of ghost fork, they call it, his ghost forkball. So he is a really good pitcher. He's had a bit of an up and down start for the Mets this year. He's had some really good games where he's looked totally unhittable. He's had others where he's looked really pedestrian. But if he's a guy who you're slotting in as your number 3 starter, I think he's pretty solid. So, I mean, obviously they're relying on Scherzer and Verlander, but if he's slotting in as your number 3, you could definitely have a much worse number 3 in a short playoff series, for example. Then turning our attention to Yoshida, to me, Yoshida is kind of like a slightly lesser version of like a Seiya Suzuki. He's already older. Seiya's already been over here a couple years. Yoshida's already older. Coming from Japan, he has this reputation as an on-base percentage machine. He had nearly a 420 on-base percentage in his 7 seasons in Japan, which is obviously very, very good. When he did get over here, he got off to a really, really slow start. I mean, I'm talking about for most of the month of April, he was batting well under 200. He couldn't drive the ball. But then he just caught fire. He had a 16-game hitting streak where he hit well over 400. He was banging the ball over the park, hitting home runs, bunch of extra base hits, on-base percentage and everything through the roof. He's kind of come back a little bit down to earth since then. I think he's starting to heat up again right now. But he's a guy that I kind of have my eye on of like, what is he gonna be? Like, I think that hot hitting streak that he had when the Red Sox were playing particularly well, has clouded people on him a little bit. I don't think he's quite that guy. Quite the guy that his full batting line tells the story of right now. I think he's going to be a little bit closer to an average hitter than the well above average hitter he appears to have been thus far. And that's not even to mention that he plays dreadful outfield defense. If you look at his defensive metrics, they are horrible. They're among the worst in the league for outfielders. And that's pretty bad considering he plays in probably the easiest left field in the entire sport. Maybe outside of, Houston with the Crawford boxes, but playing the monster, it's such a small left field. You can, once you learn how to play the caroms off that big wall, it's just he has very bad defensive metrics. So he's not a guy who the analytics are going to love, obviously outside of the on base percentage. All right, so those are number 10. Moving to number 9, and we'll get this stand out of here, is going to be Garrett Mitchell. You can see right here his Bowman Heritage, his 2022 Bowman Heritage card. Which the names are still so hard to read. But I pulled that last week, and I had it in the stack here, and I figured, why don't we show it off? So Garrett Mitchell, he plays for the Milwaukee Brewers. He's a super athletic outfielder. He was the 20th overall pick a few years ago, 2020, out of UCLA. So I think he was a little more highly regarded a few years ago than he is at the moment. I mean, that's kind of always the way it is. These first round picks, people are really, hot on them until the next round of first round picks come out, and then they forget about these guys a little bit. But he was a top 5 prospect in the Brewers system. So he was, he kind of floated in that top 100 prospect range. Some of the lists had him on, some of the lists didn't have him on. But he was a top 5 prospect for the Brewers. And even before this season, Baseball Prospectus had him as the number 62 prospect. So he hasn't been on, like I said, he hasn't been on those lists for some of the other publications in the past couple of years. But Baseball Prospectus did have him on there this season as their number 62 prospect, which is really nice. He's a very high on base percentage guy, similar to Yoshida, like I was talking about with the OBP, with some speed. The question is just, will power follow? I mean, you see here, he's a left-handed batter. You always want to have that nice left-handed power stroke, but even if it doesn't, I think he could be a pretty valuable player because he gets on base and he could definitely swipe bags. He's been pretty solid so far. He has 130 major league plate appearances, which isn't obviously a whole ton. But in that short period of time since he's come up, which has both been this year and a small cup of coffee last year, he's at 286 with an 803 OPS, and he plays really good defense. So, I mean, he's doing everything the Brewers have asked of him. Unfortunately, I think he got hurt recently, or he's hurt right now. But he's been a good, valuable player for the Brewers, and if he could be a good defensive outfielder, a really good defensive outfielder, with some on-base prowess and some speed, that's definitely a guy who's gonna provide some value. The question is, how much collectability does he have? I could see him as a guy that Brewers fans really like and want to collect, but broadly, he might be a little tougher. He doesn't have quite that full, well-rounded power profile. All right, next up, we've got our first catcher on the list. We're going to see a couple of catchers on this list, which everyone knows. I love catchers as a former catcher myself in my younger days, my baseball playing days. So this is going to be Logan O'Hoppe. So Logan O'Hoppe was actually a guy that I showcased and highlighted a little bit during my Angels preview when I did an AL West preview in March leading into the season. He was a guy I didn't have any cards of at the time. I don't even know if he really had many, if any, in the past few years before he kind of burst on the scene here. He's the 57th ranked prospect in the preseason, so coming into the season. He jumped directly from Double-A to the majors to become the Angels starting catcher. So this was a guy who was a 23rd round pick in 2018. So, he wasn't really someone who was on anyone's radar whatsoever in those kind of like 3 or 4 years leading up to this point. He got to Double-A. He really broke out. He was with the Phillies. He was that 23rd round pick with the Phillies. Broke out in Double-A. Ended up getting traded for Brandon Marsh, Phillies to Angels. Broke out even further in Double-A with the Angels, hitting the ball all over the place, playing really solid defensive, catcher position. And that's when he really got a shot, because obviously he was blocked blocked in Philadelphia by JT Realmuto, who's one of the best, if not the best catcher in all of baseball. And he just went absolutely gangbusters last year. He had 26 homers in Double-A. He had a 961 OPS. I mean, that's, those are elite offensive numbers for a catcher, especially. And he can just bang the ball all around the ballpark, not just for a catcher, but for anybody. So, unfortunately, he went down with an injury actually playing against my Yankees earlier this year. I think he tore a labrum, just taking a big, healthy hack. So that really sucks, and it's you never like to see that. He's a guy who's really easy to root for. He's actually from I think Long Island. He's a New York local guy, so to have that happen, in New York in Yankee Stadium, it's rough. But he'll be back. Obviously you hope that he recovers and that the labrum doesn't linger and affect his swing at all, because this is a guy who could be a very nice exciting catcher in the American League. All right, next up is a guy who I had a little bit of trouble figuring out where to rank, and that's James Outman. So you had his Bowman rookie here. So a lot of these guys have their kind of Bowman rookies first who make it into Series 2. He's an interesting case. I mean, I had a little bit of trouble figuring out where to rank this guy because of the start he got off to this season. He could have been much higher up this list. When you look at his future outlook, maybe he could be further down this list, but I think I got it right here. With ranking him 7th of the top 10 from Series 2. But like I said, he's kind of an interesting case. He's a bit older. He's already 26, first, being a rookie. He wasn't a really highly ranked prospect. I think he was like the 13th ranked prospect in the Dodgers system alone, heading into the year. And he just got off to that absolutely gangbusters start. Hitting, what did he hit? He had 292 with a 376 on base percentage and a 615 slugging percentage, which is just off the walls in April. But then he crashed back down to earth in May. 165, 261 OBP, 291 slugging. So like he's not getting on base, he's not driving the ball, he's not getting any extra base hits. So the question is like, who is this guy, right? Like who is he? He's not probably that guy from April. He's probably not as bad as the guy who's been in May. Is he basically the aggregate of the two? Is he somewhere in the middle? Slightly above average player, solid defense. Maybe. I mean, he had good, like I would say very, good to very good, but not great minor league stats in the 400 plus minor league games he played. So I think that's probably how he projects. I think he played a bit over his head. He just caught a hot streak in April. And, so he's probably just somewhere in the middle. That's just the reality. So, the reality probably is that the sell high opportunity on him is gone. It's probably long gone at this point. For multiple reasons. One, his performance is obviously, like I said, kind of came crashing back down to earth. Before Series 2 is coming out, there was very few cards of him. He didn't have a first Bowman. I think he had a first Bowman paper autograph, not even a first Bowman chrome autograph, not a first Bowman paper chrome, just like base card, or parallels. His only cards were that one, silver pack from Series 1, and then maybe like Big League, and then obviously is his paper from Bowman. So now as his rookie cards start piling up and his performance begins to falter, that sell high opportunity is probably gone, but I think he could be a serviceable major league player, like I said, and he plays in a really nice market for the Dodgers. So if he has an actual future there and he gets regular playing time for a number of years, he's a guy who you could look to and say, this guy's pretty good. I mean, he's not going to, blow your doors off, but this guy's pretty good. That's pretty much all I have to say about James Outman there. All right, next up, number 6 on this list. This was one I kind of debated in my head. I was trying to decide where to slot this guy, and this is where I ultimately landed, and that's going to be Ezequiel Tovar. And you can see he also, this is from one of this year's sets. He already has a rookie card in Heritage. I think he also has a rookie card in Bowman, but I recently pulled his rookie card from Heritage, as you saw similarly with Logan O'Hoppe. Really exciting young player. I like this kid a lot. 21 years old, signed as a 16-year-old out of Venezuela, top prospect for the Rockies over the last few years. Made his major league debut last year, actually at age 20. He played only a few games, I believe, with the Rockies. Let's see if it's on the back here. He played, he had like 33 at-bats or something for the Rockies last year. So he played only a handful of games, maybe 9 or something for them last year. But really, really good, young, exciting prospect. He is a top 25 ranked prospect all across the publications this year coming into the season. I don't think he was ranked even before that, but he went from basically unranked to rocketed right up the rankings into the top 25 heading into this season right across the board. He hasn't really hit yet at the major league level. That's kind of the one knock on him, I would say. And I don't think he's expected to be like this, big domineering shortstop bat. He's definitely a defensive first guy. But in his minor league career, he hit 284 with a 782 on base percent, or a 782 OPS, which is pretty darn good for a defense first shortstop. But, his real prowess, like I said, is being an absolute defensive wizard. So, you have to wonder, playing in Colorado, maybe he gets a little bit of help there as he kind of matures and gets more disciplined and fills out a little bit. Maybe that helps his offensive numbers in some capacity, just, playing in the thin air of Colorado. So could he become like a, Omar Vizquel or even a Ozzie Smith type player where he doesn't do a whole ton with the bat? He, hits a lot of singles, gets on base a bunch, and is just an absolute wizard defensively at the position of shortstop. I mean, that's probably the ceiling. Does he reach it? I don't know. Maybe not. Probably not. But, he definitely has the potential to do it. He's a super talented ball player, and he does have the defensive chops to kind of be in the conversation with those guys. Obviously, the one downside and the one knock is he's stuck playing for the Colorado Rockies, who, maybe other than Scotty B, shout out to Scotty B, who probably doesn't even know my channel exists, but I do like to watch his videos. Scotty B cards. Not sure that there's a whole ton of Colorado Rocky super collectors out there who might be chasing after Ezequiel Tovar these days. All right. Getting into the top 5. So these are I love all 5 of these guys. Big fan of all 5 of these guys. I know I said I like Tovar a lot, but I really, really love all 5 of these guys. Number 5, I'm going with Josh Young for the Texas Rangers. You see his nice Bowman Chrome, first Bowman Chrome here. I think I actually pulled that out of a rookie card explosion box just a couple of months ago. So The note I have here is that chicks and the hobby dig the long ball, and that's what this guy excels with, right? So he is a big, strong, slugging third baseman, eighth overall pick by the Rangers, really highly regarded prospect from the time he was drafted all the way up to the time he made it into the major leagues this past season. He's now the starting third baseman for the Rangers. Um, you know, he had 30 homers and 118 RBIs in just 153 minor league games, and he's already got 17 homers in 77 major league games. He's probably the odds-on favorite at the moment to win the Rookie of the Year in the American League, if I had to guess. I'm trying to think of anyone else who would be up there at the moment. If there's a pitcher or somebody who might give him a run for his money, they're not coming to mind immediately. But I have to imagine that he's probably the current favorite. A lot can change, obviously, in 4 months, but he's probably the current favorite to win the Rookie of the Year in the American League. And it is because of what he's done with the bat and the power that he's hit for thus far this season. I mean, he's a big reason for the Rangers' early success. They're the number one offense in baseball. I think they're scoring 6.5 runs a game. They're leading the West, even ahead of the vaunted Houston Astros. So I mean, they've put together a really nice team, and he is a big part of it. He's a tremendous player, and like I said, people, especially the hobby, they love the home run ball. If this guy piles up the home runs, even though he's a 25-year-old rookie, if he's piling up the home runs, I think he's going to be a big chase. I really expect his Topps Chrome rookie autograph in Topps Chrome to be a pretty expensive card. I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. All right, next up, we have another catcher. So more catcher love coming from me. Then that's no surprise whatsoever. And it's going to be Francisco Alvarez from the New York Mets. So second New York Met on this list, third when you consider dating back to Series 1 with Brett Beatty. And this position, the catching position in Major League Baseball right now is in absolutely tremendous hands. I mean, between this guy right here, who's making his presence felt with the Mets after his call-up, guys like Adley Rutschman, Gabriel Moreno, Logan O'Hoppe, all the good veteran catchers that are currently in the game with like Real Muto and others. The catching position is in really good hands. You have guys coming up through systems like Diego Cartaya. The catching position is in the best position it's been in a lot of years, in my opinion, especially because these guys all have offensive prowess as well, and are not so many defensive first guys. And I'm really looking forward to that. I love catchers, especially catchers who can hit. And I don't think most of these guys are definitely not slouches behind the plate defensively either. So taking a closer look at Alvarez, I mean, he's just 21 years old. He's another top 5 prospect in all of baseball. I think he was just, ranked as high as maybe number 2 or 3 on certain lists this past year. And, he was held back a little bit by the Mets just because they wanted him to work on his defensive game a little bit. He's not a slouch behind the plate, but he's not an elite defender either. So he probably could have got the call. His bat was probably ready, but they wanted him to work on that defense a little bit, and he's done that, and he's now, getting his chance to play every day for the Mets. But the kid can flat out hit. That's really what his calling card is. He can flat out hit, big time power. He's already slugged like 8 home runs in just a handful of games since the Mets have called him up. He's really good. I mean, he has a .533 slugging percentage in the major leagues thus far. Obviously, like I said, limited time, but that's directly in line with what his minor league slugging percentage was. I mean, I think he had like a .528 slugging percentage in all of his minor league at bats. So you're talking about a guy who, just slugs and slugs and slugs. Might not be your highest on base guy in the world. Probably going to strike out a little bit. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head if he was a little bit of an elevated strikeout guy, but he is going to slug and hit for power and muscle balls over the fence and in the gaps. That's what he's going to be known for, and he plays a premium position. Not a position the hobby loves, catcher, but he plays a premium position as far as baseball is concerned, and if you have a guy like that who could hit you 20, 30, even more home runs, depending on how many games he plays, that is incredibly valuable. And that's why I think Francisco Alvarez is going to be a really special player in the major league for the Mets. All right, top 3. These are the 3 biggies. I don't think anyone's going to be surprised by any of these names. They're probably the same big 3 that everyone has in some order. And number 3, I'm going with Jordan Walker. You got Jordan Walker with his first Bowman Chrome right here from 2020 draft, I believe. Yeah, 2020 draft. So he's currently the number 1 overall ranked prospect in all of baseball, in pretty much every list. He rose very fast through the minor leagues. He's only 21 years old. He ended up actually breaking camp with the Cardinals, as everyone probably remembers, this year. He made the team out of spring training, though they did end up sending, he had like a nice little hitting streak going to start the season. Everyone was excited. But he was playing really poor outfield defense. He had to move to the outfield because he's blocked at third base by Nolan Arenado. He was playing poor outfield defense, and then he hit the skids after his hitting streak ended. He wasn't doing kind of a whole lot there. So they ended up sending him down. They wanted him to elevate the ball more. And, he said he just wants to kind of get back to basics and get back to what has always made him good. And I think he's going to get himself back on track shortly. But, this is a guy I really believe in, even though he struggled a little bit this year. Even when he's been sent down, he struggled a little bit even at AAA, not just at the major league level. But he's an exit velocity monster. Every level he's at, he hits the ball incredibly hard. He bangs it all over the ballpark. So the results will follow. This is what good coaches and scouts and all these kind of people, tell ball players is that, if you hit the ball hard, you're gonna get noticed. It doesn't necessarily matter if it gets caught. You keep hitting the ball hard, you're gonna get results at some point. That's just the reality. And Walker does that. So, he's a big believer in his bat. Defense might end up being a problem long term. We'll see where he ends up actually ending up. Maybe he's a long-term DH. Maybe he ends up playing third. Maybe he figures out how to play outfield a little bit better. But, I remember talking in the preseason to Filmington a little bit about Walker, and, people were going crazy for him. And it was definitely a good sell high opportunity. He's down quite a bit since that time. But he'll be back. I'm not really worried about it. He'll be back. His bat is just too good, and he's still too young. So when you're talking about the number one prospect in baseball, you definitely can see the upside. So if he's down right now, he might be a good buying opportunity and a guy to hold on to for the next few years until he breaks out fully. All right, next up, I wanted to make this guy number one, but as I did the analysis, as I looked at the numbers, I just couldn't do it. That's going to be Anthony Volpe, also with his first Bowman Chrome out of 2021 or 2020 Bowman. I wanted to be a homer. I wanted to make him number one, but I just couldn't do it. He's another first round pick, another top 5 prospect coming into the season, who also made the opening day roster out of spring training to be the Yankees starting shortstop, their shortstop of the future, just like Walker. He has extremely, extremely high upside. He plays a plus position in shortstop. He is in the number one market for the number one team. That's again, that might be homerism in me, but I mean, I don't think anyone could deny that, the interlocking NY and the pinstripes is, holds the most value by and large when you're talking about teams and talking about the hobby and talking about value. I'm hoping he could stick at shortstop. Some people seem to think he projects longer term as a second baseman just with his arm and some other things, but he's a little bit of a work in progress. They definitely fast tracked him. But if he can stick at shortstop, it's going to make his collectability and his desirability and his value much, much higher. But he has all the tools. You can see it. It's in there. He's young and he's raw, and he needs that time to continue developing. And, the Yankees even told him that when they told him he made the team. He goes, listen, you have more development, but we want you to do it at the major league level. So he's a very exciting player. Early on, he's had his struggles. He's had a little bit of a low batting average, but, he's popped 8 homers. He stole 13 bases. He's got 1.1 wins above replacement already. So, you extrapolate it out over the whole season. You start talking about a rookie with 3.5 WAR and upwards of 50 steals and 20 homers. I mean, that's a hell of a rookie season. That's if he continues at this pace and doesn't continue getting better as he develops, which he has been a slow starter when he reaches new levels in the past, and then he kind of adjusts and he starts breaking out. So I have really high hopes for this kid. I'm excited about him. I think that, sky's the absolute limit for him. And like I said, he plays the premium position in the premium market. So his collectability and his prices and all that are definitely going to be through the roof. He's probably going to be the number one chase in this product, if I had to guess. All right, number one. Like I said, I was going to make this guy number 2 or even number 3, but I had to go number 1 when I started looking at the numbers, and that's Corbin Carroll. He missed out on Series 1, which is a little bit surprising because he did make his debut in the major leagues with the Diamondbacks last year. But they held him back to kind of, anchor Series 2. I will also say that Volpe and Walker making Series 2 was a little surprising to me. I thought they would both be an update because they weren't they weren't really on the radar to be in the major leagues until later this year, and it was a bit of a surprise that they both made the opening day roster. But that's neither here nor there. It might have been better, frankly, if they were an update. It would have made it a stronger product because we already had a handful of really strong rookies in this one. But we'll see how that ends up shaking out when update actually comes out. But back to Corbin Carroll for now. So yet again, another top 5 prospect. I think he was only behind maybe Gunnar Henderson in the preseason on most of the ranking lists. I think Gunnar was number 1, maybe Walker was number 1 in some, and then you had Carroll. So I mean, he was kind of the consensus number 2 prospect because he hadn't graduated from the prospect ranks yet, but he was always going to be the starting center fielder for the Diamondbacks, and he came into the season immediately that way, and he graduated from the prospect ranks pretty quickly. And he was really impressive last year when he came into the league. Only 21 years old. He had a 133 OPS plus with that just electric speed. He's not your biggest power hitter, but he's electric. I mean, I watched this guy leg out. I think it was a triple on some highlight, and I could not believe the way he got around the bases. It was unlike anything you've seen in a lot of years, frankly. And there's a lot of speed in the game right now, which I think is good for the game. It's exciting. People like that. So really impressive cup of coffee with the team last year. He was a no-doubter, like I said, no-doubter, no-brainer that he was going to make the team again this year and be a starter every single day. And frankly, he's been even better this year. He's had a 144 OPS plus across an even larger sample. He's on pace for about 50 stolen bases, which is just unbelievable. He's probably on pace for 25 home runs, too. I think he has 9 homers or something like that already. So, if he keeps it up, if he stays healthy, I mean, watch out, because this guy is one of the most exciting players. Obviously in the league. The only knock on him is that he's stuck playing for the Diamondbacks, who are a good team. They're having a nice year, but they're just not the most desirable team as far as collectability goes. Don't have as big of a fan base. But I think this guy has a chance to kind of defy that, even playing for a team like Arizona. Because he is just that exciting and that electric. I think he's going to become he might not be fully a household name yet, but within the next couple of years, he's going to become a household name. So him, along with Volpe and Walker, to me, are clearly the top chases in this product. Probably Carroll and Volpe first and foremost, at least right now. But really, really, excited to watch all these guys. And the one thing I will say about Carroll is, I was saying, I wanted to make Volpe the number 1 on this list, and that was a little homerism in me, but they're the same age. They're both 22. This is their age 22 season, and Carroll is just so much more advanced than Volpe already, which is just crazy because Volpe has upside for days, but Carroll's already started to realize his upside, and he probably still has longer to go. He hasn't even hit his stride or hit his prime yet, so definitely has the potential to have a very special career. These guys rely on their legs. They're always, that's always scary, but and like I said, the hobby loves the long ball and power hitters, but I think this guy has a chance to be something a little bit different. I think people are going to gravitate towards him for sure. All right, so that is my list here. So just to recap it, we had Kodai Senga and Masataka Yoshida tied for number 10. Garrett Mitchell, number 9. Logan O'Hoppe, number 8. James Outman, number 7. Ezekiel Tovar, number 6. Josh Young, number 5. Francisco Alvarez, number 4. Jordan Walker coming in at 3. Anthony Volpe in the runner-up spot, number 2. And Corbin Carroll as a number 1 guy to chase, number 1 rookie in 2023, Top Series 2, coming out in just a week's time. Really excited to get into that. Really excited to rip it. I have a few non-card opening videos coming up. I got a mail day. I've got a May recap and some other at SGC preview, some other stuff. I'll be on vacation. I'm going to take that as an opportunity to maybe organize myself a little bit in some of all my crazy piles I have here on my card table. Use that as an opportunity, and then we're going to come back and just hit it hard around mid-June with more Heritage, more Series 2, more Bowman, some Donruss, all this fun stuff coming up as we get into the dog days of summer and baseball season and collecting season. So, all right, folks, really appreciate you sticking around. Definitely let me know down in the comments what your thoughts are about the Series 2 rookie class. If you haven't seen it yet, definitely go look up the checklist. Let me know what you think about some of the names that I mentioned. Did I miss anyone big? Do you disagree with the order? Do you agree with the order? And what are your thoughts about some of these guys? Otherwise, I'll see you again in a few days with some more videos. Like, comment, subscribe. You know the drill. Really looking forward to pumping out some more content for y'all. All right, really appreciate it. Best is yet to come. Thanks a lot. Take care.